Hello and welcome to Wide Open Throttle, and this week joining me are the crew from MotorTrend, Ed Lowe, Johnny Lieberman, Scott Evans and Ron Kino. And we'll kick it off with, Johnny, you've been doing a bit of off-roading in one of the most iconic trails of all time, the Rubicon.
Yeah, that was a fun little thing. That was the 10th anniversary Jeep Wrangler Rubicon on the Rubicon Trail. And then they had standard Rubicons. One of the big differences is the end caps of the front bumper on the 10th anniversary, you can unbolt them, and so it's just tire. And on the regular Rubicon, it's just a bumper. And so after we ran the trail, we ran 16 miles, and it's very hardcore because what's happened is everyone shows up with like modified Jeeps with like 45-inch tires and air lockers, and they blow the trail apart. They just, instead of like stacking rocks, they just lock everything up and bam, and they've destroyed. So now there's very few production vehicles that can actually do the Rubicon. And even the Rubicon Wranglers, the bumpers were just bashed to hell, but the 10th anniversaries didn't have a scratch on them, just the bottoms of the tow hooks.
But you got to drive some concept cars. I mean, Jeep, this is unique for Jeep. Most people put their concept cars on an auto show stand.
Yeah, they brought out Flat Top, which is kind of just a regular, not regular, but it was a Wrangler Rubicon with like bigger tires and funny colors. They brought out Stitch, which was very interesting. So Stitch is fabric body panels, just super low weight. And they were saying that it has the same power to weight ratio as the SRT Grand Cherokee. And then they had the Grand Cherokee Trailhawk diesel concept, which is like an orange Grand Cherokee with a funny front end. And then they had the Mighty FC, which is, I think we can all agree, the greatest truck ever made. And what's interesting, so it was a concept last year in Moab for the Jeep Easter concepts. It had portal axles and it was a closed cab. They said, yeah, we had a real problem with those portal axles, top speed was low, no ABS, couldn't get the speedometer to work, and I'm sitting there going, why do you need this to work on
I don't see the problem.
So they might be doing, I don't know, they might be doing something with it. And now that they removed the back of the cab so it's a convertible.
But everyone loves that vehicle. I mean, it seems like if you can do it for a reasonable amount of money, get it into production, it seems like a no-brainer.
I kept saying, like, so what's the holdup? You got Dana 80 axles, it's all standard stuff, it's all Wrangler parts, same wheelbase as a Wrangler Unlimited. And the one engineer kept kind of smiling, crash testing's tough. I'm like, it has a full roll cage. He goes,
your knees are the crumble zone.
It has a full roll cage.
Which would never make it to production. I think it was like 5 years ago they had the Gladiator concept.
Yeah,
the truck,
the pickup.
Any sort of truck off a Wrangler. I mean,
I like the lower 40. You guys remember the lower 40?
Yeah.
They've done some, but it's a bit frustrating, isn't it? They've done some fabulous concepts in Jeep, off the Jeep, and nothing ever happens. I mean, how long did it take them to do a four-door Wrangler, which seemed like the simplest thing ever?
It took the SUV explosion. I mean, that's what it took, was that you couldn't stop selling SUVs. But, I asked him, and Ron and I were talking about this, about the Gladiator. Like, right now they sell a kit. You can buy, I think it's a $5,000 kit. You can convert yourself, bring it to a shop. You can convert your Wrangler into a pickup.
Doesn't look as good as the Gladiator, though.
But
it's pretty good. There's one running around here that we've seen. The AEV does it.
Yeah, but I said, why not just put that into production? And they said, look, we ran the numbers. Obviously, we want to make money. For us, it's more profitable not to do it.
Well, let's get back to this, the Mighty FC, which stands for forward control. Yeah. And let's ask the question why we are not doing a video on that vehicle versus Fred Williams, his own personal forward control that he has.
That's a wonderful question for Chrysler PR to give us an answer.
Yeah, so Fred's out there wrenching on his trucks. We want him to bring his FC. He's like, I think he's president of the FC Owners Club of America.
Of Central California.
Yes. He has one, and we'll get this one out there, and we'll go bash him up on Rubicon or somewhere. Moab, let's go to Moab.
Okay, now for something completely different from Jeep to Aston Martin and Bentley.
Good traffic.
Vanquish versus Continental GT Speed, a clash of the British icons, although ironically neither one's quite British owned anymore. Bit of a controversial result internally. There are some people who really, really love the Bentley and other people who really, really love the Aston. Ed?
I'll just come out and say I really like the Aston quite a lot. And as you said, it was extremely polarizing vehicle. We were just talking about how Scott Mortar, our road test editor, and Carlos Lago, they hated that car. And I'm like, how can you hate, first of all, such a beautiful looking vehicle.
Gorgeous.
But the V12, it sounds phenomenal.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's got all the quirks inside. Some of the finishing wasn't so great. I said, I had to poke some trim back in. But when we had it at charging up the hill, fantastic driving car, I thought.
Yeah, I went on the launch of the Vanquish, and I thought it was great. I mean, it's great ride, great handling, very good power. Problem is the Bentley's better. I mean, I just.
I agree with you on some level. I mean, I think the Bentley is probably a better car, and it's going to last longer, and it's not going to have the issues. I mean, my problem with the Vanquish was, the radio not working,
or the window,
the tweeter's not going down, the window's not going up or down. But
minor details.
But it sounds great. It drives. It's more engaging. The Bentley is like so quiet. It's just like it's kind of boring, but it's incredibly fast.
See, I didn't think it was boring, and I will. Out of everything that we drove for best driver's car, I smiled more driving the Bentley because I couldn't believe that something the size of a small apartment was like moving like
the weight of a small apartment.
Yes, it was so fast.
And that particular car was one of the limited edition, Le Mans edition cars, and it was the Wolf Bernardo edition. So it had the granite exterior with the red interior and
interior.
Sorry, it was a bit more stylish than that. It wasn't.
I don't know what Bravo you're going to. But no, everything was red. Every single surface was red. Yeah.
But it was beautifully done, and it felt like it lasted. My problem with the Aston is that you can still see the man behind the curtain in it.
It was like they tried, but they didn't quite get there.
The nav system is
Garmin.
Well, but
forget about the nav. We don't talk about nav systems. So no more nav systems.
I said it before. Your expectations are constantly being exceeded by the Continental. I think that's where you set them, which is interesting. I came to the Aston really kind of like, my favorite Aston is the small one. The Vantage to me, V8, the V12, that's a phenomenal
V12 is
car.
one of the greatest cars
Beautiful,
in the world.
perfectly sized. I really kind of look askance at the bigger ones, and then when I got on the Vanquish, I'm actually, this is pretty good.
My problem with this Vanquish is I don't think it looks as masculine, as epic as the old Vanquish, which had that haunch on the back.
Big haunches.
It was one of Ian Callum's first Astons, and that car had real presence. This one just looks like a sort of stretched DB9 GTS
I don't like the chin
clone.
spoilers.
Yeah,
they all look like a DB9.
I'm a little, actually, it's funny you bring that up. I'm a little worried about the future of Aston design because I was at the launch of the car, like I said, I was sitting there talking to the new designer, and I said, why'd you put the mustache below? And he goes, oh, because the car is made of a lot of carbon fiber and we want to show that off. And I go, yeah, but it doesn't look very good. I'm like, look, at this day and age, an Aston has to be beautiful first and everything else second.
Are we worried that Aston seems to be stuck in a groove? It's like in the old days when you had your record and it would keep repeating the track, it would never end. I mean,
it's a great track.
It is, but are we going to get bored with it?
I've always thought, Aston design it reminds me of, oddly enough, the Brady Bunch movie. where Mr. Brady is the architect, right? And everything he designs is the same. It's his house. It just has different landscaping. To me, that's what Aston design is. They all look like the same profile, everything. And they're just like it's subtle. The differences.
Very subtle.
Continental GT sometimes tries a little too hard to be a sporty car, a sports car. I don't think it needs to try that hard. It's a real gentleman's GT. So it doesn't need to try and be a sports car.
The final point maybe is that Vanquish member is $300,000, and even the special edition Bentley was $220,000. Only total bargain $225,000.
You've got two of them, have you?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
$250,000. Oh, so it's a $50,000.
I will say the final point on maybe why I strike against the Aston is that I showed it to 3 different women, and they hated that blue color. I was like, it's the weirdest thing. I like the blue color too.
So you had a bad weekend then.
Showed it to.
So you're the only single guy here.
Cheers.
Well, Aston Martin's interesting because for most of its life, it's a company that's teetered on the edge of bankruptcy, building great cars, but there's never quite been enough money there. Now Ford's got rid of it. It's sort of independent ownership and a few question marks over its future. But the partnership with AMG is an interesting one.
And remember, it's not just AMG, it's AMG for the V8 engines, and then it's Mercedes, and I think this is probably the key point for electrical systems, like wiring harnesses and window switches.
Windows.
I don't know about radios, but
we want them to work.
But so they're taking the last British thing out of the car. But Mercedes electronics.
A la Bentley.
Mercedes electronics. Mercedes electronics work very well, and so I think it's a big positive step. I really do, especially because that V8 they have in the Vantage is kind of an also-ran at this point.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I was around when Ulrich Betz came to run Aston Martin. Quite an interesting choice, and an engineer who's very confident and very sure of what he wants to do. But he did transform that company. You know, his VH architecture with the original Vanquish and taking that into other cars. It really did enable him to build a legitimate model range of vehicles, and he used his connections, obviously, in the German auto industry too.
Speaking of the German auto industry and British brands, so BMW's got Rolls now, and Volkswagen has Bentley, and now Mercedes, sort of. It's like a little tiny percent. They kind of got the last one, Aston Martin.
Let's project a year, 2 years down the line. What if AMG is going to be building the V8s for all the new Astons? What essential qualities then do these cars have to have? What must they retain? What must we see in these new engines and these new powertrains that make them Aston? Because I'll tell you, I think it's pretty clear what the 6.2, the 63 engine sounds like in all aspects. If we start just ramrodding that into every Aston, then we have a problem.
Well, that becomes a very interesting question: is which V8, right? So AMG right now, they build the M156 family, and that's the 6.2 liter naturally aspirated, and the M157 5.5 liter twin turbo.
That's on the way out. Isn't that on the way out though?
No, the 6.2.
The 6.2 is on the way out. The 5.5 is
the one that everybody loves. Yeah.
Yeah, the 5.5 is the future. I mean, it's that thing. I mean, they just announced, it's already in the SL63, but in the S63 it's 577 horsepower, 664 pound-feet of torque. That's to start.
But they also build the naturally aspirated version in the SLK.
They do, which is just it's the 5.5 liter with
without
the turbos pulled
turbos.
off. Yeah,
I'd be looking for a naturally aspirated engine in an Aston.
Yeah.
I think
that one seems to make the most sense.
And we all love the 6.2 that Mercedes calls the 6.3. We all love that engine because of the throttle response and because of the noise it makes. In the 5.5s, it's kind of artificial. You know that exhaust note's manufactured. The 6.2, it's real. So I'd like to have that sort of. To me, that's what an Aston Martin V8 should be like.
So do you think this keeps the 6.2 liter, potentially keeps that V8 alive?
It actually could. I mean, if Mercedes keeps the 5.5 for their line, and then they're like, hey, you can take the 6.2.
But right now the Aston V12 is actually 5.9 liters. Wouldn't it be weird to have a V8 that's 0.3 liters larger?
And I'm not sure. I'd have to look, but I think that 6.2 is a fairly big engine to try and package.
It's very big, and it only shows up in like the top level AMG stuff, like the C63 Black and the SLS. Like that's kind of an exclusive engine.
The C63 is a 6.2 liter.
That's what I'm saying. It's an exclusive engine for AMG. So to just hand that over to Aston Martin might be a little touchy for them because they're not handing over their V12s either.
Well, they handed one of the V12s over to Pagani. So,
and here's
a little different thing now.
That's a bespoke engine for Pagani.
Yeah.
It's based on, but it's built.
It's built on the same line as the other V12.
And will it come? And will these all come with the transmissions?
That's
another. That might be actually the real end. In fact,
they give it that dual clutch. I mean, that's
you know, I just thought of this. It's very interesting because Aston Martins are transaxles, and the Gullwing is a transaxle, and that adds up to the 6.2 liter
with that dual clutch.
Clutch. Amazing.
That could be quite a car, and that's all we've got time for this week on Wide Open Throttle. We'll see you next time.